What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Fantasy Flex podcast from the Action Network and Fantasy Labs, presented by Yahoo Fantasy. I'm your host, Chris Raybon, and this is part 2 of our fantasy running backs for 2025. As always, I am joined by one of the top rankers in the game. He's been top 5 in season-long accuracy over the past 3 seasons of Fantasy Pros, numerous in-season winning awards for the odds maker, Sean Koerner. Sean, what's going on?
What's up? Today we get to venture along and discuss the frozen pond. So I hope you brought the appropriate shoes for this, or I guess it'd be skates, whatever you think, but ready to dive in.
Yeah, I don't know. What would you wouldn't want anything too heavy because you wouldn't want to just anything to weigh you down because I feel like you're going under at some point. You're going to have to swim your way out, right?
It would have to be skates. Wouldn't skates help, like the weight distribution? You can get across it faster, if you're skating.
Oh,
yeah, maybe we should.
I don't think I thought you're definitely sinking in, and you got hope the rescue team.
Not,
you don't want to. You don't want anything weighing you down.
No. It's not a definite. Like Chuba Hubbard could be an RB1 again this year. Like, let's not get it twisted.
True. Yeah, and that's definitely the type of backs we're talking about. But they definitely do get a little shakier here in this RB2 tier. But if you missed part 1, Sean and I looked at the top 12 running backs according to the season-long projections on Yahoo Fantasy. And this one, we're going deeper down the list to find some value. And if you're getting ready to dominate your fantasy football league, why not use the same projections that Sean and I use? Well, guess what? You can. Our Fantasy Labs NFL subscription gives you access to our player rankings, projections, customizable draft cheat sheets, and more. And new subscribers right now can use code FLEX20, that's FLEX20, for $20 off a Fantasy Labs season-long NFL subscription. Again, that is FLEX20 at fantasylabs.com/flex for $20 off. So go and win your league. Just use the code FLEX20, $20 off, fantasylabs.com/flex. Let's get it started. The RB13 in Yahoo projections goes around the same in ADP. James Cook for the Buffalo Bills. Sean, how much floor risk do you see via, first of all, touchdown regression for Cook? He had 18 in 16 games last year. And then also, he's a guy that doesn't necessarily play a ton of passing game snaps either. He was around 40% last year, 2 catches per game. What are we talking about with the floor for Cook here at RB13?
Yeah, he's definitely a tricky projection because he is, coming off a career year. He had 18 total touchdowns after scoring just 9 in the first 2 seasons. So I'm projecting, a shit ton of regression. I have him scoring 10 touchdowns. So 8 fewer this year, but that's still a lot because this is still an elite offense. If you look at the betting markets, the Bills are projected to score the most points this year. So lead the league in points. Doesn't mean they will, but at least, their odds are the highest. So I think we're going to see, a ton more scoring potential opportunity for Cook. And he benefited from the offense being more balanced in general under offensive coordinator Joe Brady. So there's a lot to like with Cook. But when you talk about floor, I think the floor with him and the concern I have is, losing some passing down work or more passing down work to, say, Ty Johnson, and losing some short yardage work to Ray Davis, who is pretty good in his rookie season. So I think the Bills could look for ways to kind of limit Cook's workload this year, and that would kind of chip away at what was his floor last year. So, this isn't like a crazy rank for Yahoo or for ADP in the RB13 range. But I think there are enough concerns here to not spend like massive draft capital on him. But yeah, I think this is a fair price for him, but I'm typically drafting wide receivers in this range. What about you?
Yeah, he is my RB13, but I'm not really super excited about him. I do think he, all the floor concerns you laid out. At the same time, I did notice that down the stretch and into the playoffs at the most important time of the year, they really kind of recentered the offense around Cook. I mean, it seemed like he was the focal point even more so than Josh Allen almost. They were really trying to feed Cook the ball. He had 23 attempts in the first playoff game. Then he had 20 touches total in the second game and 16 in the Ravens game with well over 100 yards and a couple touchdowns. So if he gets this contract, which it seems like they're working towards, it's kind of one of those situations where they really have no reason to not use him, because why would you pay him otherwise? So I think he's kind of locked in to this range. Like maybe it's not super sexy, but I'm not super worried about him. I do think that, he obviously regressed in touchdowns. I got him projected for 9.7, but he still slots in as the RB13. And I think he could do a lot worse. And I do think it was positive that they really showed, kind of where they thought they were strongest by leaning on him in the playoffs. And now, thinking about giving him a new contract. And Brady's always been a run heavy guy too. So there's been a massive uptick in just rushing for the Bills. And you mentioned I think they have one of the easiest schedules. That's why they're projected they're locked in for the most points. So a lot of kind of underlying things that aren't as worrisome as you may think with Cook. The next guy here, I think he's a lot more concerning. Kenneth Walker, RB14 in Yahoo ranks. I mean, he did have a career high 4.2 receptions per game last year, but new offensive coordinator Grubb has been canned after he was one and done in Seattle. So it's year 2 of McDonald, but now you got Kubiak coming over from New Orleans to coordinate the offense. And Walker's always been between around 14 to 15 carries per game, actually a career low 13.9 last season. And as we record this, he has missed 3, I believe, consecutive practices with a foot injury. Are you concerned about, first of all, just general change in the offense, but also the injury specifically? And I just asked that question because he missed 6 games last year due to 3 separate injuries, including 2 leg injuries. He had a calf issue and then an ankle issue, which ultimately ended his season. So a lot going on there with K-Dub.
Yeah, so with going back to James Cook, when I'm walking on the frozen pond there, I feel safe, but any moment it could collapse. With Kenneth Walker, you can hear the cracks and the ice. Like, we're still on the surface, we're okay, but you can, physically hear the cracking. I think the offense might actually help him because Clint Kubiak taking over as offensive coordinator. They were
offensive Canada.
Matt Canada.
Matt Canada. Oh no, that's worse than the McCaffrey siren. Yeah.
Oh right? No. Yeah, that would be horrible.
a Matt Canada Freudian slip.
Yeah. Those things happen. So he uses outside zone runs at a very high rate, and that's actually the type of runs that Walker thrives in. So I think this could be a good scheme for him. I am concerned just the fact that he does have one of the better backups in Zach Charbonnet. And for now, anytime Walker's been healthy, he's been, the true workhorse back. Charbonnet just kind of mixes in, not that much. So the offensive coordinator might make it more of an even split. I don't know, but that's a concern anytime you have a new regime. But I think, anytime Walker's been healthy, he's been excellent. Last year he was RB14 in points per game. So just, you nailed it. The concern with Walker is just his injury history. And he's already missed a handful of practices with this injury. And, he'll probably be fine for week 1, but it does seem like it's always something with him. And that's a concern. And that's why, in this range, if a guy's dealing with an injury, it's even more reasons to shy away. But I think that at RB14, this is already kind of like, might be his ceiling as long as Charbonnet's healthy. So I'm not really getting much Walker at all in this range. And honestly, the next few backs I'm kind of just passing on because this is the range I'm trying to get my second or third wide receiver anyway. And there's just too many concerns with some of these backs. Now, Walker could stay healthy and, be excellent in the scheme. But at, RB14, you kind of need that to happen.
Yeah, I don't want anything to do with Walker here. I mean, I think there are more concerns than even just injury. I mean, we talked about in the last episode how Genty with the Raiders offense may be a little bit undervalued. Geno Smith there, they could be a league average or even better offense. Whereas this Seattle offense with Darnold could be one of the worst in the league. And the reason I say that is because that O-line is also a big question mark, which is not ideal with the new quarterback, especially Sam Darnold in particular. Yeah. And then you have the looming threat of a guy like Charbonnet, who has been just as good as Walker. And, Walker's been a guy that he struggled with efficiency at times running the ball. He's a very he's a home run kind of guy, but he can get into bad habits and get knocked out or knocked down behind the line and, just kind of do too much at times. So it really comes down to that offensive line. And I think we still have a lot of question marks. Cross was good last year at that left tackle position, but you still have a lot of question marks outside of him. And this is, again, a new offense. You're learning a new system. We don't know exactly what the carry split's going to be. In terms of run blocking, I mean, you let go of Fant, so that's probably a positive. But at the same time, you seem to be prioritizing speed and pass catching a little bit more at tight end. Barner wasn't if he's going to be the guy, wasn't a great run blocker. Can't expect the receivers to do much in that area. So yeah, I don't know. I could see a big letdown here for Walker, or I could see this devolving into a committee. Just too many question marks for him to be floating quite this high. Chuba Hubbard, he's another guy that's got like Kyron Williams, who we ended the last episode on, another guy who got a massive extension. Chuba got it last year, 4 years, $33 million, 16 guaranteed. Do you think that locks him back in as the unquestioned feature back? Last year, he was just under 17 carries per game, just over 3.5 targets per game, and a 77% snap rate, which is very high. But they did sign Rico Dowdle, so how much do you have him working in, and how much does that impact Chuba?
Yeah, I think he's a lock to be the starting running back. I think he has a pretty long leash. I don't think he's really a threat to get leapfrog necessarily. But I think, Rico Dowdle will certainly eat into his workload, at least more so than, Miles Sanders last year. Jonathan Brooks returned late in the season and only played a couple snaps and then he was done. But Raheem Blackshear wasn't going to steal work from Hubbard. They brought in Mike Boone for his 15th team to take a couple touches, but nobody even close to Rico Dowdle's skill set. And, they also drafted Trevor Etienne in the 4th round. I think he could also mix in. So there's just a lot more competition for touches here. So even though Hubbard will be the lead back, he might not see as much volume this year. So last year was the perfect storm for him, and he finished RB12 in points per game. There's no question. He was excellent last year. He surprised everybody last year. But, drafting him around RB15, again, you're drafting him closer to his ceiling. And, the floor can open up here where, Dowdle could force, a 50-50 committee or, something like that. So I think this is a bit of a reach. You're kind of just buying last year's number in this range. So even though I have him projected here, he's sort of a classic frozen pond case where, again, you're probably drafting a guy near his ceiling in a very fragile position. So I would not be shocked if he doesn't, come close to RB15, maybe, RB20. But I think we're just spending up a bit on Hubbard based on last year's usage.
Yeah, I'm not too concerned about it. I mean, I think if you read between the tea leaves, we saw the big extension for Hubbard, and then we saw the market coming below what we expected for Rico Dowdle, right? Like we thought, the way he ended the season, that he was going to be a little bit more in demand. The Cowboys could have brought him back for cheap. They declined to do that, and then Dowdle signed a very cheap deal, especially compared to Chuba Hubbard's with the Panthers. So I think Chuba's going to be locked in again. Yeah, they'll probably spell him a little bit more. That was the intention all along, whether it was Sanders or Brooks or whoever, it didn't really happen. But ultimately, I don't really see too much of a drop-off. And the thing I do think that elevates a guy like Chuba Hubbard, and it hurts a guy like Kenneth Walker, is that offensive line in Carolina is very good. And they're getting all their starters back. They have continuity there. So that's going to really, I think, work in a guy like Chuba Hubbard's favor. And clearly they see him as the focal point of the offense. So, maybe they are just a better team this year and there's more running back carries to go around. And that's how Dowdle actually gets his volume, because I don't see them, kind of eating into Chuba's work too much, especially, you give a guy a $30+ million contract at the end of the year too. Like it was like, or middle to the end of the year. So, they clearly,
I think Brooks was active when they gave him his contract, right? So that was a huge sign, in my opinion.
Brooks is already washed, bro. Like,
give him a break. He tore his ACL back-to-back season. So yeah, he could have a break
on fantasy benches and real life benches. He's just not. He probably just not going to ever be a factor in the NFL at this point. But yeah, Chuba, I'm not concerned about him. Again, I agree with you in the sense of a lot of certain ones at certain points, especially in this running back range, it will come down to not just the order that we have the running backs, but what are we doing at the other positions? Are we taking a running back here? Are we taking a wide receiver? And I think this is generally a smarter time to take receiver. At the end of the last pod, we kind of summed up. I personally especially like the idea of, even if you can get like two of those, Chase Brown, Jonathan Taylor, Kyron Williams, two guys in that range, I'd much rather that. And then kind of jump back on the receiver train here. So I'm not really getting too much of Chuba, but I'm also not too concerned about him, just reading the tea leaves and with that O-line. A guy people do seem to be a little bit concerned about, Breece Hall. Mentioned him as a faller in the last pod as well. Now he's RB16 in the Yahoo ranks. ADP, sometimes he goes a little higher, but quarterback change from Aaron Rodgers to Justin Fields, head coach changed, offensive coordinator changed. You got Glenn, you got Tanner Engstrand coming over from Detroit. So that could be a good thing. But overall, what do these changes kind of mean? What do these changes net out to for Breece Hall compared to last season when it was kind of rocky in itself?
Yeah, so Breece Hall, I still think is one of the more talented younger backs in the league. So I still believe in him in terms of talent. But last year, he just didn't take the next step. Finished 18th in points per game, and I think switching to Justin Fields could hurt his receiving upside. Fields, does target running backs at a higher rate than I think people think, but he is going to scramble more. So that anytime he scrambles, that does take away a potential target to Hall. So I think that could hurt his upside a bit. And yeah, I think the coaching staff coming from Detroit could help, just because maybe they're going to be better coaches than the Jets have seen recently. But I think Tanner Engstrand has kind of hinted at kind of using a committee sort of like Gibbs and Montgomery, which would hurt Breece Hall. So if they really want to view Braylon Allen as sort of the Monty role and Breece Hall as the Gibbs role, that might sound good on paper, but the Jets offense probably isn't capable of sustaining, two fantasy relevant running backs. So I think that would hurt Hall if they intend to kind of cut his usage for Braylon Allen. We kind of have to monitor this throughout camp and preseason, but that's what I've been hearing. So that would hurt the upside case for Hall. So I think, again, this is one of those things where my rank for Hall is right around running back 16, but just there's enough concerns that I'm still shying away at running back. Ideally, I already have one or two running backs by now, and I'm not having to take one of these guys. But, if I was messing around with wide receiver and took a tight end earlier or something, I would be okay taking Hall in this range because I think he does have that upside. I think his floor is higher than people realize. But, his value has dropped quite a bit from last year where I think he was going RB3 this time last year. So I think the concern is real there, but this rank sounds about right. It's, again, not a range I'm typically targeting running back, though.
Yeah, it's one of those situations where if you already have just a monster receiving core and you're taking a guy like Hall or Cook or somebody, like it's not, you'll be fine, I think, but it's not really an upside situation here with Hall because you could have two guys mixing in behind him. Isaiah Davis played well down the stretch last year as well, and of course Raybon Allen's still there. And I mean, there are some concerning signs. I know he's kind of been struggling with injury, but you have seen the yards per carry decrease each of his 3 years. He's kind of been eating off these long runs, and it's been jacking up his yards per carry. But for the most part, he's had very inefficient stretches throughout his career running the football. Now, the O-line should be pretty solid, but still, I did find it odd that the coaching staff upon arrival just kind of, I don't know, they didn't really pump up Breece Hall at all. They're kind of shitting on him a little bit there. So yeah. I don't know if there was something going on behind the scenes or what, but that does concern me. And then to your point, just low volume. I think Justin Fields for his career is around 25 attempts per game. So I mean, historically, you're gonna build like an early career Lamar Jackson type of offense volume wise around Justin Fields in all likelihood. And that does hurt Hall because he really gets a lot of upside from that pass catching work. He had 76 catches in 2023 and 57 last season. And we know Aaron Rodgers, will target his running back and kind of give him some easy targets. Whereas, Justin Fields, it's not going to come that easy for him. So, Hall, it's not really a sexy pick for me here. Like, I'll take him if I really need a running back. We've seen him put up numbers in the past, but I don't see as much upward mobility with him here. I think some of the guys that we're going to discuss next might have higher ceilings, at least for this year. Number 17, Omarion Hampton, rookie. I mean, I think there could still be some concerns about what his final workload or what his workload will ultimately look like because they also signed Najee Harris, but then Najee Harris went and sustained an eye injury in the July 4th holiday. Now he's on the non-football injury list. I mean, how much has this Najee situation impacted your rank of Hampton, if at all? And what are you doing with him in this mid RB2 tier?
Yeah, so to be clear, Hampton's ADP has gone up to like RB12, so he's rarely going this late anymore. But yeah, the whole Najee situation impacts my projection for Hampton. I'm actually I'm almost done with it, but I'm putting there my running back upside ratings chart. So I've done the Chargers. And, if Najee is active and 100% and he has, both eyeballs are functioning, I have Hampton, right around RB 18, right around here, RB 20 maybe. And if Najee is out, I have him inside the top 10. He would be my RB 9. So it seems like ADP is just kind of banking on Najee not being a factor. And honestly, I have no idea what's going on with Najee. He's walking around in sunglasses. He got in a walk the other day with like a weighted vest. I have no clue what's going on with Najee, but I think Hampton's ADP might be at a tipping point here where it's almost closer to his ceiling. So I haven't been getting him much here. But I think people are going to be disappointed how much Najee is kind of a thorn in his side because they didn't bring Najee in to just be a handcuff. I think he will mix in. if healthy. And we actually got to see a glimpse of Hampton in the Hall of Fame game. He made one excellent run. I think it was like an 8-yard run. And then after that, it looked like he had the edge, potentially score a touchdown, and he cut it outside, and he got clipped by Rocky Sin, and I don't think he gained a yard. And it was kind of a rookie mistake there. I just think he's not as polished as people think. He has a wider range of outcomes than people think. And right now he's just being drafted closer to his ceiling at RB12. So again, I think at the end of the day, his value will depend on Najee's, status heading into week 1. And we don't really know, or we don't have much clarity there to really understand that. But again, if Najee's in, I have him around RB18. If Najee's out, have him around RB9. So significant range of outcomes there.
Yeah, I think he's going a little too high. If you look at, obviously the Chargers want to run the ball, and they felt addressing the position was important. But you look at how they began last season, and that could give us some clues where it was close to a 50-50 split between Gus Edwards and JK Dobbins. And then Dobbins eventually played himself into more of a clear-cut, featured role, and Edwards was more a backup. But even then, Dobbins was really surviving on. He was efficient there, and you don't like to see things like you mentioned with Hampton. He might have to max his efficiency more than we think, depending on when Harris comes back, because I think they kind of envision that same kind of situation this year where it's more like a 60-40, and we just don't know exactly, when that 60 and when that 40 is going to come. We don't know if Hampton can be what J.K. Dobbins was for the Chargers last year yet. It's got obviously a lot of talent, but remember, Greg Roman offense, those are his guys. Edwards, Dobbins, Hampton's a rookie. Najee Harris is from another team. So we don't know exactly how this all is going to shake out. And even last year when Gus Edwards was out, they started playing. You started seeing Kimani Vidal and Hassan Haskins getting looks in the backfield. So I do think there's going to be a split no matter what. So I'd actually have Hampton a little bit more static than you probably even have him if Najee continues to miss, because it sounds like they're really putting a lot of weight in this RB2 or 3, whatever you want to call it, competition. I know we've been to a few of those preseason games. It gets pretty crazy between Jarrett Patterson and all those guys. So
Hassan Haskins, baby.
Right? Yeah, we joke, but that's one of those things where you get into the season and you're expecting this, Jahmyr Gibbs, if Monty's out, type of workload for Hampton, and then he's still just in this 15 touch range. You're going to be a little disappointed. So that's kind of how I expect it to start out, especially if he's not making the right reads on his runs, because that's just that. There's also the situation of the Chargers were able to run the ball a lot last year. Their schedule was, a joke most of the year. This year, it's going to be a little more difficult, a little more. Mm-hmm. So yeah, just again, another guy. Don't really have him ranked too differently from here, but I'm not buying on this ADP rise. I think it should be static. From everything we've seen, the Chargers they were addressing running back just as much as taking a running back in round 1. Signing Najee Harris has to be looked at as we're just addressing the running back position. I don't think it's oh man, they took him first round. It's not like a Genty situation where it's we're gonna use him balls to the wall. So yeah, I'm not super bullish on Hampton at a rising ADP. Alvin Kamara is an interesting one for me. He just turned 30, 21.1 touches per game last year, 18 plus each of the last 7. Seems like he scares people a lot more than some of the other older running backs who are technically a lot riskier just because of where they go in drafts. Where are you on Kamara this year?
Yeah, I really view Alvin Kamara and James Conner as not really frozen pond type guys. The market's down on them, and rightfully so, because they are on the wrong side of 30. But that's not really a reason to be down on guys. I think both these guys offer, a higher floor than these other backs. I think people are just drawn to shiny new objects like Hampton. They're just shooting for upside, which there is a part in the draft to do that, and I think it's later on at running back. So I think Kamara, I know you love him, and I think, he's a stable option in this range because people don't like him because, A, he's, 30. He hasn't really slowed down much, and he relies a ton on, pass catching usage. And I think he'll be more than capable of handling that in his 30s. And people don't like him because the Saints are going to suck this year. And, while that might be true, that also does feed into what he does well, which is catching the ball. So more, trailing game scripts will actually help him out. So he's a guy that I don't really have concerns. I'm not like super high on him, but where he's going in drafts, if I do need a safer running back, because again, I took a running back early, I've been hammering receiver, and I just want like a stable option, I'll take a Kamara or a James Conner, and then I'll, stash some high upside backup running backs. But I think Kamara is a safer bet than people realize. Just because he's 30 doesn't mean he's washed or anything. His efficiency will, likely continue to decline, but, the usage will be there, and especially the pass catching stats, which is what we want when it comes to Kamara anyway.
Yeah, I think people just have a bad taste in their mouths because of the Saints last year and just, Dennis Allen. But it's like a whole new regime, and it's an offensive head coach, which I think is important, and Kellen Moore, who, like, Kamara could be his Saquon Barkley this year because the quarterback situation is not going to be good. But when Jalen Hurts was struggling last year, what did they do? They went super, super run heavy. There's a potential for that to happen this year, even if they're a bad team. There's a potential, like you said, for them to be so bad that all it really does is help Kamara catch 100 balls. And Kamara probably has more receiving upside than almost any running back in the league, especially if you look at his career numbers, his targets per route. So, yeah, I'm very high in Kamara. I wouldn't mind, honestly, taking him. My RB12 is Jacobs. That's a little lower than some, but essentially, I don't mind taking Kamara as the first running back of this tier. Like, if you want to take Alvin Kamara over James Cook, be my guest, because I just think it is that, like you said, that shiny new toy, and he's an easy, like, if you're just trying to, okay, who's gonna bust candidates this year, it's easy to just, the 30-year-old guy on the bad offense. But if you kind of look a little deeper, it's like all that's baked into the ADP here. He's been very consistent. He hasn't missed many. He's missed games, but not like a catastrophic amount of games ever. But he doesn't have like a crazy amount of wear considering his age. He's still very smooth. And a lot of what he's going to be asked to do is going to be in the receiving game. And there's also the upside for him to get that Barkley-like usage to where, no Taysom Hill to vulture any potential scoring opportunities. No Jamal Williams. I mean, the depth chart is pretty sparse behind Kamara right now. So Kellen Moore didn't just come over to New Orleans to go like 1-16 and like not even give like a puncher's chance. So I think Kamara's gonna be his, at least in theory, like he's gonna try to be his Saquon Barkley. Like that would just make the most sense. That's what I would do if it was my first time being a head coach and I was looking at my quarterbacks and I saw Rattler and Shock and Hayner, and then I was like, oh, this Kamara guy, no matter what happens, that we could get the ball to him twice a series at least, if not all three. Yep. So yeah, I think Kamara is gonna. Now, maybe the age decreases the chances of him holding up a little bit, but to everything we've seen, he hasn't, he's been able to hang in there, give you 14 plus games a year. So, yeah, I'm very bullish on Kamara. All right. Now it's time for a segment we're calling Value Climbers, presented by Yahoo Fantasy. Sean, so far we've talked James Cook, Breece Hall, Chuba Hubbard, Kenneth Walker, Omarion Hampton, and Alvin Kamara. Out of those running backs, who are you seeing the most value in fantasy this season, or is it somebody outside that range?
Yeah, the answer is none of them. I do like Kamara, but I think James Conner is someone we haven't talked about that I would draft in that range. Luckily, I don't have to because he does fall outside of that. But, James Conner is a dependable back who, whenever he's healthy, produces. Last year, he was 14th in points per game. And I think the knock on him is, yeah, he's 30 years old. And yeah, he's missed a handful of games pretty much every season. But last year was the healthiest he's ever been. It's the first time he played 16 plus games. He set a career high in touches with 283. So I think all the knocks on Conner just aren't there. I'm not seeing it. So I think in this range, I kind of want a dependable high floor back. I'm not shooting for the moon. And James Conner fits the bill. So I think I'll gladly scoop him with everybody passing up on him and take him around the RB20 range. And I know what I'm going to get from him. So I'm going to go with James Conner here.
Yeah, I'm going with Kamara, and kind of a similar guy age-wise. People maybe a little bit down on him. And the one thing I think he has even above a Conner is when you look at that depth chart, there's really nobody else. Whereas even Conner has, potentially some competition from an up-and-comer in Benson. I don't think that's the case with Kamara. I think a new coach will lean on him heavily, and I think he's still pretty good, and catching passes is what you need to do on a bad team. So love Kamara as a value riser here. All right. There are your value climbers presented by Yahoo Fantasy. As a reminder, this episode is presented by Yahoo Fantasy, and it's my favorite time of the year. The NFL season, just a few weeks out, which means fantasy is in full swing. And this year, Sean and I are playing on Yahoo Fantasy, and they're taking it up a notch, giving you a fantasy football experience like never before. To celebrate 28 years of fantasy football greatness, Yahoo Fantasy is dropping 28 big new features over 28 days throughout August. And to kick things off, they just dropped Yahoo Fantasy Guillotine Leagues. And that is a killer new way to play fantasy football where the lowest scoring team gets chopped each week until there's just one team left standing. So with the NFL season just around the corner, now is the time to get your league mates together and give Yahoo's new Guillotine mode a try. But if you're more into the classic traditional heritage fantasy leagues, don't worry. You can still play in a head-to-head private league or join a Yahoo public league. Stay tuned for more killer announcements and start playing Yahoo Fantasy Football right now at yahoofantasy.com/flex. That's yahoofantasy.com/flex. Speak of the devil, RB19 in Yahoo's ranks, James Conner. Break him down, Sean.
Yeah, the Red Devil. James Conner, RB19. Love him here. He's definitely had his career year already. We know that. But, he still continues to produce and very efficient this late in his career. Last year, he was 14th in points per game. Not really showing signs of slowing down either heading into his age 30 season. Yes, Trey Benson could factor in more this year, but I've heard them say that the plan is for this year, more of the same as last year, where James Conner's the guy. Benson will mix in, of course. But Conner's going to get those key touches in the, red zone, the goal line touches. So I think we can bank on Conner for at least one more season. And the knock on Conner and why his ADP probably is always lower every year, it seems like, is the fact that he does tend to miss a few games a season. And I've always said that's kind of overblown because we always talk about the median projection for missed games for running back is 2 to 3. He just does it every single year. So at least he's consistent hitting his median. And last year, he played a season high 16 games. So if anything, he's less injury risk than ever at this point in his career. So I just think he's a solid pick in this range. Again, I think when we're going over the frozen pond, we're just trying to avoid disaster. If anything, we just want high floor play. So that's why I love your Kamara take. And I think Conner's similar to that, where we kind of know what we're going to get with him if he's healthy. And that's what I like targeting in this range. And then Later in the draft, I'm going to take some flyers to land a potential Bucky Irving type. But I think in this range, going the safe route with Koerner makes sense to kind of start filling out your running back depth.
Yeah, we'll talk about some of those rookies in a moment, but RB20, David Montgomery, he's a bit polarizing. I think RB20 is a bit high for him. He's 28 now. Reportedly clearly the 1B now, which is a change from the first 2 years splitting work with Gibbs. I don't think he can repeat in the receiving game. I think they're going to funnel more to Gibbs. I think they are going to feature Jamison Williams more, and sounds like they're really high on Sione Vaki. I don't know if that's just kind of the preseason hype, but he's another guy you could factor in more so in the pass game, you would think. So then you got the O-line and the potential game script issues. So I'm lower on Montgomery than consensus. Where are you on Monty in his age 28 season?
Yeah, you know me. I mean, we've debated this a few times now. You know me with Monty. I love him in my upside ratings chart. He is literally the poster child for what I seek out. And I just did the Lions last night for the chart. And my projection for Montgomery when Gibbs is healthy is pretty low. It's, RB25, which is right around where he's going. I wouldn't take him at RB20 because of that. But at RB25, I think that makes sense because that's kind of his floor this year, at least to start for me, is around the RB25 range. But if Gibbs does miss time, I do have him pushing top 10 value. And last year, we didn't see Gibbs miss a single game, so Monty didn't get to tap into that hidden upside. And, for what it's worth, Gibbs was healthy all season, and Montgomery averaged the 13th most points per game. So I'm factoring in quite a bit of regression for this offense. Again, I have them projected to score 7.5 fewer points than last year. So that takes away from their touchdown upside and specifically Montgomery, because that's kind of what he banks on. And again, we don't know what the new offensive coordinator is going to do. He might opt to play Gibbs even more. I wouldn't blame him either. And still, I'm kind of getting Montgomery at cost at ADP. And just when it comes to these backup running backs, you just have to factor in their upside if the starter misses time. With Montgomery, the upside is undeniable. So I think, at worst, he could still return value in this RB25 range if Gibbs stays healthy. I just love taking those kind of backs where there's massive upside built in as well. So definitely, would stay away around RB20. I think this is too high. But around that RB25 range, I think that's a good time to roll the dice on Monty this year.
Yeah, for me, it's once you get past Kamara and Koerner and into this kind of like the next tier of guys, they're all interchangeable to me. At that point, I just want to make sure I got my receivers squared away. Mm-hmm. Whatever I did or didn't do at running back, it's just on hold because, yeah, I think Montgomery, not like that's mid-20s. That is where he should be ranked, but there's just so many guys. This is the frozen pond here. I mean, there's just so many guys that I don't think realistically we can, like, there's going to be so much variance in terms of the range of outcomes when you factor in missed games and you factor in who's missing games in the committee that's going to benefit or hurt them, that you just have to kind of start treating these guys interchangeable. And that's why I think you see the uptick in receivers being drafted in these middle rounds. So yeah, if I don't already have my RB2, I'm just making sure I have my receivers and a flex receiver squared away, and then I'll draft. If Montgomery's still there, great. If not, I'm happy to go in multiple different directions. Just, there's a lot of upside rookies here. Probably are also, some could be going too high. And one of those guys, I mean, RB21 in Yahoo's ranks goes top 24 in ADP. RJ Harvey, Broncos rookie. A guy I know we were both really excited about with the landing spot, but the ADP really caught up quickly in best ball, and it seems like it's following suit here in redraft. Now so I guess people, given where he's going, people know the upside case for him. Speedy guy, rookie, Joker, Sean Payton offense that needed badly needed running back, but I want to ask you, what is the floor? Because I do feel like he's at a point where this spending this draft capital could also go disastrously.
Yeah, I think, well, the floor is certainly, he's not even an RB3 flex. He's just kind of phased out. Sean Payton gets pissed at him. He's in the doghouse. That's certainly in his range of outcomes. But I do love his upside, and this is one of those cases where it's so annoying how sharp the market is. I feel like just a few years ago, this kind of guy would be, I don't know, RB30, kind of overlooked. But this was an amazing landing spot for Harvey. Going to the Broncos because, they had to move on from the running backs from last year. And, they're going with RJ Harvey and JK Dobbins, presumably this year. And this is an excellent offense, excellent offensive line, great scheme. And when I was doing my running back upside chart, this reminds me of like a discount version of the Lions, with Harvey sort of being the Gibbs role and Dobbins being the Montgomery role. Obviously not as an elite an offense, but certainly same dynamic where both players probably do offer a pretty high floor when both are healthy, and then a massive ceiling if either one misses time. And Sean Payton has had this thunder lightning approach, and I think the 2017 Saints with Mark Ingram and rookie Alvin Kamara could be what we see here, with RJ Harvey being rookie Alvin Kamara. So the ceiling is undeniable here. He's a great pass catching back, very fast, very explosive. So he could absolutely be, high-end RB2, maybe an RB1. But like you said, the floor is pretty low. So he has a very wide range of outcomes. So you just have to know when you're taking him that there is some risk. And certainly taking him at cost, you're really taking on some risk. But I think the upside's there. So I have been taking him in spots. He typically has to fall past ADP, but it happens. And I think that he's one of those cases where he's like a discount Jamar Gibbs, so to speak.
Yeah, I did get a bunch of him in best ball, as his ADP was climbing, but I don't think I'm getting any of him in redraft. I think this ADP is it's too high. I think when you look at Sean Payton's offense, I mean, you go back to 2017 Thunder and Lightning, but like last few years, it seems like it's been thunder, lightning, earth, wind, fire, rain, like like for real, man. So I just don't have enough certainty, especially after you go out and you sign a JK Dobbins. After you talk about, this Joker role, but now you have Ingram, and now you have Mims potentially freed up to play the backfield more because you drafted Pat Bryant, or a receiver, like the day 2 pick at receiver, who could, free Mims up. Mims was taking 4 or 5 carries at times out of the backfield last year. Ingram's a candidate for something like that. You have not just Dobbins, but you also have like McLaughlin, Estime, like one of those guys probably making the team and getting work on game day, because that just seems what Sean Payton's MO has been. So I don't fully trust that Harvey is in that position. Now, I certainly see the talent, and I think he could kind of emerge like a Kamara, but we're really kind of like at this range again. I just think when you factor in the floor, he's just interchangeable now, sadly, with a lot of these other guys, and many of them go later. So he's not a guy I'm like putting a pause on drafting my wide receiver corpse to go out and get. I think you just got to kind of take the board as it comes to you. And unfortunately, like you said, the market just kind of blew their load a little bit when it came to Harvey. Well, I mean, he could be like a Sproles guy too, which, may or may not translate just depending on how efficient he is, the touchdowns. So, I just think the range of outcomes is too wide for me.
And the ADP was kind of unfazed with the signing of J.K. Dobbins, which ever since then, I've been kind of like, what the hell's going on? But getting back to my upside chart, I think Dobbins is the better value. Just kind of wait. You can invest in this backfield that way. But what are your thoughts on Dobbins? And I don't think people realize this, But Dobbins is only 2 years older than Harvey. Harvey's a older running back prospect. He's 24, and Dobbins, it seems like he's like, 37 years old, but he's still only 26, and he's dealt with a ton of injuries. So, he's got to stay healthy. But what are your thoughts on Dobbins in this backfield?
Yeah, he's probably the better value. He could end up being a non-factor at the same time. Like he's another guy with a wide range of
cheaper
outcomes.
To find out.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I think my reservations are not with the players in this Denver offense. I'm very bullish on Denver. I was last year as well. It's that I'm starting to just understand what Sean Payton's envisioning, and it's to have a bunch of interchangeable pieces, which is going to be a nightmare for consistency. With same reason I'm not as bullish on a guy like Ingram. I just think Sean Payton wants to have a bunch of weapons so the defense never really knows, like, oh, is this going to be a week where Marvin Mims gets 5 carries or RJ Harvey gets 15 carries or Dobbins gets, 20 carries in a power back role? Or is this another one of those like Audric Estime weeks or McLaughlin weeks or Bidet weeks?
Yeah.
Like, I just think that's his vision, or he wouldn't have drafted the way he did with, adding and signing another running back and then adding receivers when he probably didn't need to do that at the point where he did. It's like, I don't think it's going to be easy to predict. So I kind of have him boxed into more of a best ball specific thing. That's how I'm kind of approaching the Denver offense.
Yeah, he had said numerous times last year he was going with the hot hand approach. That could apply this year. And if you've ever had a running back in those situations, it's a nightmare in head-to-head leagues where you got to make a decision every week. Like you said, just being a little bit unpredictable is not ideal in that format. And best ball, you don't really care. You just take the spike weeks. So that certainly is the better format for these guys. But yeah, I remember Sean Payton just going, I'm going with the hot hand. So that those markets of like most rushing yards in the game, I was taking a flyer on like Jaleel McLaughlin at big odds, things like that. There's ways to take advantage of that, but knowing who to start every week could be tricky.
Sean Payton's a sick man when it comes to like formation subs too. Like if he's one of those guys, 1st and 10, he'll have one group on the field, and then like 2nd and 5, like 4 guys will trot off and 4 guys will trot on. Like this dude, not only does he use like 3 running backs, he's using a fullback most of the time. I mean, come on.
I remember I went to the game last year when they were playing the Chargers, kind of to watch that happen. Like, you could see it easier in game. I had some props and like getting to see who's running in like on and off the field was helpful. But yeah, he loves to change up his personnel like after every play.
Yeah, and I mean it makes sense. So, but I think people may be a little bit disappointed consistency wise with some of these guys on this offense. But Tony Pollard, RB22 in Yahoo ranks, very consistent last year, career high 16.3 carries per game. Sean, how much stock are we putting into the reports that Tennessee, we've heard that they want to increase Tyjae Spears' role. We've also heard separately that they want to kind of add a third element to the backfield mix in terms of more of a power back. And we've seen them kind of play around at the bottom of the roster with, they drafted Mullings, and then they've been shuttling in like a Ty Davis Prices and guys like that. So, I mean, there could be something to it, but how do you think the role kind of measures up to what Pollard was doing last year?
Yeah, so, we were kind of thinking that last year that, Pollard and Tyjae Spears were going to be more of a 50-50 committee. I'm a big Tyjae Spears guy. I still am. I think he's very talented, but he just missed a ton of time last year and he was banged up. So they kind of had to make Tony Pollard, workhorse back. And he was excellent in the role. He looked really good last year. And he's one of the running backs that I remember moving up based on his preseason. Not that I was overreacting to his stats necessarily, but after having that ankle injury in Dallas, he just didn't look quite the same. And last year in preseason with the Titans, he did have that burst back, that explosiveness that I remember pre-injury in Dallas. So I was moving his projections up, but I still thought Spears would factor in. So I think we might be drafting him closer to his ceiling this year because, again, it was kind of a perfect storm for him last year where he was a true workhorse back because out of necessity. So I think they want him to, obviously be the lead back, but they want Spears to mix in more. I don't know who would be the short yardage back. But Spears was pretty good in goal line situations last year. They did some, wildcat plays, some trick plays to kind of open things up for Spears. Maybe they just do more of that. But yeah, I think Pollard's workload isn't going to be as big this year. And, last year he was, I think he was RB 22, RB 21 tied with Rachaad White and points per game. So again, like it seems like we're drafting him closer to his ceiling here, where this year I think, he is going to be splitting more work with someone like Tajay Spears.
Yeah, and an underrated element too is I think this Titan team could be pass heavier than people think. Remember last year, Callahan, first year there, he got stuck with Levis and Rudolph. And now he's got a quarterback drafted number 1 overall in Cam Ward. They redid the receiver room. They got another tight end in there and Helm. So this just might not be that same run heavy kind of team it was last year. They were run heavy out of necessity a year ago. So yeah, I think last year was the year to draft Pollard. I mean, again, if he falls far enough, it's fine. But I just think once you get past that middle of the RB2 tier, Kamara for me, I think all these guys are largely interchangeable. You could poke holes in all of them, some more than others. And we'll talk about one of those guys shortly. But yeah, that's where I'm at with Pollard. I think last year is the year for him. Kaleb Johnson, a rookie, Pittsburgh Steeler. Seems like he's going to slot into that new Najee Harris role. He is a guy that, did well to run into stacked boxes. That was one of the pros reportedly for them drafting him. What do you think Kaleb Johnson does in year 1? How do you think the workload ends up shaking out?
Yeah, so when I was watching Caleb's film before the draft, my comp for him was Najee Harris. I mean, he reminds me of him. He played at Iowa. They were wearing, the black and yellow. It looked like a Steelers game. It looked like Najee Harris. So I thought landing in Pittsburgh was the perfect landing spot for him. But sort of like RJ Harvey, the market's kind of too wise of that and maybe too bullish on him because RB22, he's being drafted on RB22 right now. I think that could be a bit aggressive because I do expect him to basically take over the Najee role. But that's, early down work. And then, he's going to still concede snaps to Jalen Warren. Maybe Kenny Gainwell in passing situations. I think he's going to be too one-dimensional to really pay off at this ADP. So this is just a case of I think just people are too excited to draft rookies, the sexy play, the upside that rookies provide, but they're not realistically thinking about this in terms of median projections. And I have him, I have him ranked pretty high. He's my RB 27, but there's enough concern here to kind of pass in the RB 22 range. So love him as a prospect for what he does and the landing spot. It's just his ADP has kind of gotten out of control lately.
Yeah, again, I don't mind drafting him at all. It's just if he's there after I've kind of shored up receiver, like that's what it comes down to for all these guys. I think with him in particular, you kind of hit it. Like it still could be like more of a 3-way committee, but I mean Najee Harris wasn't very good, so there is some upside here. Like some maybe he's like Arthur Smith wants him to be his Derrick Henry type of situation. So I mean. Kenny Gainwell obviously is not going to be much of a factor if things are clicking. And Warren, I think they kind of have a specific role for him in mind. I don't think they want him to necessarily surpass that. So there is some upside here, but nothing you want to reach on and kind of go out of your way for, especially because he's not one of the sexier rookies in terms of like, the speed and whatnot. So, he's kind of in this frozen pond purgatory. Isiah Pacheco, he's the RB24 in Yahoo ranks. Oh man, my guy. I mean, the positive is at least on the unofficial, whatever you call it, depth chart. At least he was the RB1. That's something. But I think, does he have a better chance of escaping the frozen pond, or is there a better chance of hell freezing over? Like I don't.
No, he is. He is stuck in it. He's already in there. It already broke because I was holding out hope. Like I remember telling you, like obviously he wasn't the same after returning from that broken leg. I mean, he missed 9 games. He returned from that. That was incredible in itself. Wasn't the same. He could bounce back this year and look like his former self, but after diving into their depth chart and doing my deep dive on upside ratings, I don't think it matters because this backfield is packed. And his ceiling is still pretty low, even if he's, the prime Pacheco we all love and remember. His ceiling's still packed because, I mean, Kareem Hunt probably still going to mix in goal line work. Brashard Smith, he's looked really good in camp as the pass catching back. They really haven't replaced Jerick McKinnon, but he could be that guy. And then we talked about earlier with Christian McCaffrey, but Elijah Mitchell has flashed when healthy in the past. They brought him in. So if he mixes in at all, that's going to just make it even more crowded. So it's a situation where even if he's healthy, he's going to be only using certain packages. And it's the Chiefs, they're still a pass heavy team. He doesn't really factor in receiving work or necessarily the goal line. So he's kind of pigeonholed in. And if you think about if anybody in this backfield is ruled out, does he really get that big of a boost? Not really. So his ceiling is capped. So I'm like, he's being priced pretty close to his ceiling and his floor is really low. So this is just an extreme frozen pond situation that I am absolutely not touching. I'm not even walking onto the surface to find out if it's solid or not.
Yeah, I have Pacheco as my RB 48. So 20, just double his Yahoo
double
rank.
his ADP.
You got my rank for him. Yeah,
there you go.
I just think this is one of those situations where most of these guys are interchangeable. I'm with you. I don't see it the upside for Pacheco because he's never been a good goal line back. There are multiple veterans on the roster where even if you have a situation where, let's say, Hunt gets cut or traded, or Mitchell gets cut or traded, or one of those guys doesn't make the team somehow or another, the other one is still there, and then there's a passing down back waiting in the wings in rookie Smith. And on top of that, Pacheco's really he peaked in value before going down last year and in 2023 when he was getting work in the passing game. And that was because the Chiefs were stuck in that have to dump it down all the time. Defenses were playing too over the top. They didn't have any real, deep threats. But now all the reports out of camp are that they're trying to bring that downfield offense back. They got their receivers, more receivers and firepower and availability. And on top of that, we don't know if Pacheco is going to be himself. So, yeah, this was a 7th round pick. So he might just be regressing to the mean. I'm all the way out on Pacheco. Let's talk about some guys. Who do you like outside the top 24 that you think have a chance to crush value here in that RB3 and beyond tier?
Yeah, so that'll be what my entire, upside ratings chart and piece will be about. But we already talked about him. JK Dobbins sticks out to me, sort of being sort of a discount David Montgomery type, where I think he's going to have a fairly high floor. And, he does have a ceiling in the offense if he does turn out to be, the back most weeks. And he's, going at a very fair price, usually outside of the top 35. But the guy in that range I do like a lot is Jordan Mason. Who is, he's going to be backing up or starting out as Aaron Jones backup. But Kevin O'Connell has already talked about this being a pretty true 50-50 split. And Mason apparently would be the goal line back. So I love his upside just, in week 1 as being a, RB3 flex option. But if Aaron Jones continues to struggle with fumbles or just declines faster than I expect, he could command more work with a healthy Jones. And then, he has let's go with high-end RB2 upside if Aaron Jones does miss time. So he just has a really solid floor ceiling combo for somebody that you could typically get just outside of the top 30. So Mason's a back I like to target. And then 2 longer shot backs. I think Jaden Blue for the Cowboys is still the closest guy I can think of to be this year's Bucky Irving. He's the exact same height and weight as Bucky. And, he wasn't a top draft pick, but he did land in a pretty good situation where he only has to beat out, wash Javonte Williams and wash Miles Sanders. There's a chance one of those backs, ends up panning out this year. But I think there's a decent chance Blue surprises and you can get him outside of the top 50, right around RB 50 right now. So love taking a swing on him. And then I got to stick with my guy, Blake Corum here, who did not get a chance to spot start for Kyren Williams last year. I also wrote, there was like a 15 to 20% chance he could leapfrog Kyren Williams. None of that happened, but that wasn't his fault. Kyren Williams being healthy the entire season was not Blake Corum's fault. So he wasn't a bust in a process sense. And now that Kyren signed that contract, I think there's like minimal chance Corum could leapfrog him. But, there's a chance Kyren misses time. And McVay typically likes to roll with one guy, and that could be Corum, who, again, he has to beat out Jarquez Hunter in preseason. But, McVay has usually redshirted, rookie backs if you look the past several seasons. So I think Corum is a sneaky bet as a, true stash. He's going RB like 70 right now as somebody that has high-end RB2 upside if the starter misses time. So I think a lot of people are just kind of moving on from Corum, but I think getting him as like a last-round pick, if you can get him, makes sense still.
You just cannot quit this guy Corum, man. I respect.
Hey, well, if I gave like I was high on Kyren, and then I gave up on him, and then he broke out, and then I gave up on, like, I gotta like buck the trend, so I'm doubling down on Corum. And if Kyren Williams stays healthy for 17 games, you won't be able to play Blake Corum. But I think this year he's at least more droppable. Last year required, RB 40 draft capital, which definitely hurt. But I think just this year, the fact that he's essentially free makes it easier to sit there and just look at him on your bench every week, waiting for a chance. But I think if the chance does happen, I think he'll be the guy. But that's something we have to monitor. Hunter could become the backup, but as of now, I'm still sticking with Corum.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's what we'll see in the preseason. I know some people are high on Hunter, but yeah, to your point, it's usually been we're too high on the shiny new toy, and he just doesn't play at all. So, for me, a couple guys I want to mention are a few guys. Number one, DeAndre Swift. We didn't talk about him, but I think he's very intriguing. We love Ben Johnson. We love the upside for Kaleb Williams. We love the offensive line for the Bears. Redid the entire interior of the line. Could have one of the best lines in the league, kind of similarly to the Lions with Ben Johnson. So if we're high on all those pieces, I think it only makes sense to also be high on a guy like DeAndre Swift, who's still locked into that lead back role. They didn't really address the position outside of Monogany in the draft. Maybe they make it more of a Roschon Johnson works in, but that was kind of happening at points last year. But I just think Swift is going a little bit under the radar considering the supporting cast. So he's a guy that I would draft over pretty much all the other guys after Kamara that we talked about who probably are going a little bit too high. Maybe not James Conner, but all those other guys. Charbonnet, your man Zach Charbonnet, love him this year. I just think there's a lot of uncertainty with Walker, and that foot injury does worry me a little bit. Now, by the time y'all are listening to this, it could be nothing. But again, 3 injuries last year. He missed 6 games, 2 leg injuries. He's been hurt in the past as well. He's never played a full NFL season. I think that was due to suspension his rookie year, but nevertheless, a guy that I am a little bit concerned about even workload-wise because he has a tendency to be feast or famine. I think Charbonnet is just as talented and maybe could even outplay him depending on the scheme. So I'm high on Charbonnet. And then I think similarly to your Dobbins call, I gotta roll with a guy like Ramondre Stevenson. I've been getting him because Travion Henderson's in that kind of similar bucket where he will probably have a role in this a large role in the offense, but it could be a lot more varied than we think. Like he could be, he's working with the kick team and he could be doing some things in the pass game. So I think Stevenson's still going to see a pretty decent workload. Remember, this is a guy who McDaniels is familiar with from his last stint in New England. So I think Stevenson's been going a little too low. Sometimes he dips into the 40s in running backs. Top upside guy, my pick for Bucky Irvin this year still Bashal Tutin. I know he had a little hamstring issue. It seems like he's over that, but I expect him to be a top 2 back pretty much immediately in this offense. I think we saw that with Bucky last year, where first 3 weeks it was double-digit touches on average. And Tank Bigsby, I mean, we've seen Tank Bigsby be like a non-factor. He's a guy not really giving you much in the pass game, which I just don't know meshes with this Liam Cohen offense. So I'm just going to tune out the noise and hope Tutin doesn't go crazy in the preseason or anything like that. Hopefully they keep him in bubble wrap or he stays on the injury report, because I think he finishes as the most valuable Jacksonville back, and he might be that from the jump. And then a couple other guys I want to mention. One, Jerome Ford, early, he'll probably give you some early season value. I don't think Judkins is in a position to where he's just kind of in limbo right now. So I think Ford, he's been the guy that's been mentioned in that lead role. I think Dylan Sampson has some upside too, but at least as it stands, Ford is going to probably open the year as the lead back in what could be the worst offense in the league, but Ford is a pass catching guy. So it's kind of like a poor man's Kamara situation with a shorter time span, but you could get some value out of him, and he sometimes goes, outside the top 40, outside the top 50. And then Brashard Smith, just a guy to watch in camp. This is what we did with Pacheco when he was a 7th round pick, low on the Chiefs depth chart, but everything seemed kind of wide open. By the end of camp, it was pretty obvious that Pacheco was going to be a factor in that offense, and he was a great value pick, and Smith could be the same. So he's a guy that definitely watch for, could be a great stash, depending on what he does and how much buzz he generates in the preseason.
Yeah, love Charbonnet. Just want to double down on that. Once again, I think he's one of 2 players, him and Montgomery, 30 in a row being an A grade in my upside chart. But he's one of those guys where he's going late enough, like, RB 35, where he's going to offer top 10 upside, RB1 upside if Walker misses time. And I have given up hope that he will carve out enough of a role to offer RB3 flex value if Walker's healthy. But there is a new coaching regime, so who knows? Stranger things have happened. But I think just stashing Charbonnet, given his upside and given, Walker's injury history, makes him one of my favorite handcuffs and just upside plays in general.
Yeah, speaking of handcuffs, I mean, there are some handcuffs we should probably mention. You can get a guy like Will Shipley basically for free. Keaton Mitchell, who should be the handcuff to, who should see a similar role to Henry, can get him for free. Even Justice Hill for free. Monitor the Niners situation, because we don't it should be Garendo, but now we don't know exactly how much time he's going to miss. The rookie Jordan James was hurt, but he's returned to practice. But maybe it's Abdullah. I would monitor that, because whoever it is, if it's not Garendo, he may be free. So there are some handcuff situations that are worth kind of monitoring, because they're going to be with these older backs. Like, these guys are so cheap. Their handcuffs are so cheap that I think you do want to kind of monitor. And remember, like Sean always says, you don't got to draft the kicker. You don't got to draft the defense. Yep. And you just got to sign one before week 1. So that's 1 or 2 extra spots that you could just be stashing the potential handcuffs. Like, if I'm drafting CMC or Henry, I'm trying to get Hill and Mitchell on my team, or Garendo and case. James or Abdul, whoever. Yeah. So that definitely situations to monitor if you are going to go that route with those backs. All right, that is going to do it for part 2 of our running back 2025 fantasy preview here on the Fantasy Flex, presented by Yahoo Fantasy. We'll be back with our rookie episode next, where we'll do our rookie running back draft. A lot of running backs this year, so That should be fun. But remember, part 1 already available. Go check that out if you haven't. And we'll have our wide receiver and tight end weeks in the next 2. Our quarterback episodes are already live, so be sure to subscribe to the Fantasy Flex so you do not miss an episode all preseason long. Don't forget, fantasylabs.com is where we house all of our fantasy football content, and you can download the all-new Fantasy Labs app and save $20 on an NFL subscription by downloading the app and using promo code FLEX20. Again, that's promo code FLEX20 for an NFL sub at $20 off. Live event, August 23rd, Joe's Bar on Weed Street. If you're in the Chicago area, I'm going to be there. Sean's going to be there. We'll have some special guests as well. Should be a lot of fun. We will have a little draft event, grade some of y'all in your drafts, and maybe watch some preseason as well. It's a big weekend for fantasy, so be sure if you're in the area, RSVP. The link is in the episode description. We look forward to linking up with y'all. We've done a couple of these in the past. They've been a lot of fun, so really excited about Chicago, August 23rd, Joe's Bar on Weed Street, presented by Yahoo Fantasy. You can find Sean on X at @_oddsmaker. I'm at Chris Raybon. We're at those same handles on the free, award-winning Action Network app. Once again, thank you to our sponsor, Yahoo Fantasy, the best place to play fantasy football. Until our next episode, let's get this money.